Good evening Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to all of the viewers on Synergy TV. You are tuned into Real Issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain, the newest talk show in town. And we use the word real issues deliberately because we intend to be discussing current affairs and other similar issues over the course of the next few weeks as we lead up to the local government election on August 14th, 2023. We intend to discuss issues from the background of empirical data, information, and not based on propaganda, hearsay, and as they say, real science. So it is not my intention really for the course of the next 2 hours to sit by and just lecture, but it's going to be an interactive program where later on we'll be opening the lines and allowing you, the viewers, the listeners, to be able to call in and share your views on the topics that are discussed. So let's get into it. As I mentioned earlier, we are in the throes of a local government election, and perhaps never before have we seen so much interest generated in a local government election for so many different reasons. Key point to note that we have so many parties that are contesting this local government election, perhaps more so than ever before, and it speaks to the interest that these persons have, representing different people, different views, and so on, some of which we will be sharing on this program as we go through the next few weeks. So tonight, it's just me, but the intention over the next few days would be to have guests who will be coming in with their information to share with us on the different topics, the different issues that we will be discussing. So just sit back, relax, and let's just have a good time for tonight. Now, as we head into the local government election, there are basically, from where I sit, 2 main issues that we should be discussing. One is the local government reform agenda and, of course, the property tax and how the two are intertwined. Because I don't have a guest with me this evening, that was the original intention, to have a local government practitioner come in basically to discuss the local government reform agenda. We'll be focusing more this evening on the property tax side of things. Now, let me say, first of all, I'm not here today to defend the property tax, but I would put it on record that I am in fact a proponent of the property tax, reasons for which I intend to share with you this evening. So we're going to be doing a little bit of reading, if it is that you all don't mind. Now, I always make the point when it is that I have my podcasts and so on, that if we are to discuss issues, it should be based on fact and real information. The unfortunate thing is that so far, the property tax issue has been facing a lot of resistance, primarily because of ignorance. And I say ignorance meaning a lack of information. Most of the discussions that we see and hear on social media and even on the airwaves presents a lot of misinformation, if you want to call it that. Persons are not too clear as to how the property tax is going to work. The average citizen may not be able to tell you, for instance, how the property tax is going to be calculated. And we know that there's a lot of pushback from the official opposition of Trinidad and Tobago since 2010, when they would have come into office on the basis of Axe the Tax, that there would be no tax. There was the promise that the Property Tax Act would have been repealed, but as we know, that didn't happen. It never materialized. And in fact, in 2014, we would have had the then Minister of Finance, Larry Hawaii, announcing the stated intention of the government to, in fact, bring back the property tax. And I just want to, if the director is ready, to just play a little clip to give you a little reminder of that. Are we ready, director?
Government will be reintroducing property tax from July 2014. However, taxes on land and properties will be introduced in phases over a 3-year period. The announcement was made by Finance Minister Larry Hawaii during his budget presentation in Parliament. Charlene Lewis has more.
The introduction of land and building taxes will be done in 3 phases over a 3-year period from 2014 to 2017. According to Finance Minister Larry Hawaii, the backbone of a successful land and building tax is a proper evaluation of properties within a transparent network. Minister Hawaii said the first introduction of taxes will be for industrial plant and machinery properties, which will kickstart from July 2014.
I propose to phase in these taxes over the period 2014 to 2017, during which time the properties will be valued and consultations will be held with all stakeholders. In phase 1, and effective immediately, we shall commence valuations of all industrial land, including plant and machinery, whether house or in-house, with a view to implement this tax by July 1st, 2014.
Minister Hawai said the second and third phase will include commercial, agricultural and residential properties.
In phase 2, we will impose a tax on commercial properties, and in phase 3, we will impose a tax on agricultural lands and on residential properties, with a deductible allowance to provide relief to certain agricultural landowners and low-income homeowners.
Right, so that there was former Minister of Finance under the People's Partnership Government, Larry Hawai, in his budget speech where he would have indicated the government's intention to, in fact, bring back the property tax, albeit perhaps by a different name, but as the saying goes, a rose by any other name is still a rose. Permit me to read just a little bit for you from an article that was dated Sunday, July 15th, 2012, in a publication called the GIOT Communication, and the article is entitled Hawai Wants an Efficient, Equitable Property Tax. And it says, Finance Minister Larry Hawai wants to see a property tax reintroduced in Trinidad and Tobago. However, the minister wants an equitable tax that would be different from the one that the Manning's People's National Movement Administration wanted to impose on citizens. Hawai told the Express newspaper that the country needs to revisit that property tax and consider introducing something more efficient, effective and more equitable than proposed previously. And the People's Partnership would have campaigned against the tax the PNM introduced in 2009 and scrapped it as promised, and it has not introduced a new tax. Hawai explained his reasoning behind the tax. Property taxes exist virtually all over the world because if you own a property, there is a cost attached to it on the micro and the macro level. Garbage, sewage disposal, and everything that goes with maintenance, he told the newspaper. Trinidad and Tobago has had land and building taxes for more than 100 years, and it's always been there. And nobody was axing the tax prior to 2010. And I think part of the problem was how the whole issue was communicated. By and large, most people expect that they have to pay some kind of land and building taxes, but what they felt was that the last legislation probably may have been a little heavy-handed, and so they rebelled against it. That was Minister Hawai in 2012, July, where he was espousing his support for the property tax, and he would have given reasons why he did so, indicating that, of course, everybody expects to pay some sort of tax. Now, what we would have been told by the opposition, was they call themselves the government in waiting, is that should they come back into office, anything along the lines of property tax, they would not be interested in, but instead what they would be looking to offer the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago is a return to the old land and building taxes that existed prior to 2009, when the old land and building taxes was repealed by the then PNM administration in preparation for the new Property Tax Act. And, you know, having perused this old land and buildings tax, and we use that word, tax. For some reason in this country, the word tax seems to be taboo. That whenever we hear the word tax, somehow we think that it's something bad. And perhaps in some way, we could understand why that is so, because some citizens may think, well, if it is that I'm not benefiting, or I can't see how I'm benefiting from this tax, what's in it for me, that I'm not inclined to pay it. And as I said before, a lack of information, ignorance always breeds resistance. So I just wanted to touch a bit on this old land and building taxes that is being proposed to come back. First of all, it's interesting to note that this tax first came about in 1920, 103 years ago. And when you look at what were the provisions in this act up until 2009, in terms of the rates that were in this particular tax bill, it's pretty interesting. And it boggles the mind, really, how any progressive government would want to bring back a tax, such as this one, especially with the type of rates that we see in here. So permit me again to do a little bit of reading for you. And you could, on your own time, when the opportunity presents itself, to do your own research on the Land and Building Taxes Act 1920, 103 years ago. In fact, when most of us who are alive today were not around at that time, and most those who may have been around at that time, they're in fewer numbers today. But I want to read this for you. Section 3 of this Act. It says, on all lands and buildings not being within the cities of Port of Spain, San Fernando, or the boroughs of Arima and Point Fortin, there shall be raised, levied, collected, and paid to the Comptroller of Accounts for the use of the state the following taxes on land. Up to a maximum acreage of 10 acres, an annual tax of $10 an acre. That's right, $10 an acre or any part thereof. In excess of 10 acres and up to a maximum of 100 acres, an annual tax of $10 on every acre and $15 on every acre thereof in excess of 10 acres. In excess of 10 acres, an annual tax of $10 an acre on the first 10 acres, $15 on every acre in the excess of 10 acres and up to a maximum of 100 acres, and $20 on every acre or part in excess thereof. But here is part. On every building, the annual taxable value which does not exceed $24, an annual tax of 96 cents, and on every building, the annual taxable value of which exceeds $24, an annual tax of 7.5% of such taxable value. You see that 7.5%? I think it's very important to take note of, and it's something that the population has not been made aware of prior to now. Because what this current administration is proposing under the new Property Tax Act is an annual rental value as it pertains to residential property of 3% of the annual taxable value. But here it is that the old land and buildings taxes that the current opposition are telling us that if it is that they were to come back into office would seek to reimpose, proposes, well, not really proposes, but has within it a tax of 7.5%, more than double what it is the current administration and the current Property Tax Act proposes. So it means, therefore, that if it is that, as promised, if the opposition were to get back into office come 2025 and they follow through and make good on their promise to bring back the old land and building taxes act, then it means, therefore, that you are likely that they can actually charge you as much as 7.5%. That is in the law. That is what the law says. The only adjustments that would have to be made, of course, would be to the valuations of the property, because based on the section that I just read there for you, this act, which was in force up until 2009, spoke to properties valued at $24 with an annual rental value of $24. You see, we need to understand the context into which this act would have come into play back in the year 1920. In 1920, the population of Trinidad and Tobago was approximately 365,000 people. Today, it is 4 times that figure. So that the needs of the people back then, spread across Trinidad and Tobago from a geographical perspective, was far less, and the demands on government's financial resources would also have been less. Since then, of course, as I mentioned, the population of Trinidad and Tobago has grown. There has been significant development, both in terms of residential development, commercial development, agricultural development, all of which impose stresses on the physical infrastructure of the various corporations in which these entities could be located, right? So it is understandable. If it is that you are saying to me that we need to bring back the old land and buildings taxes, we cannot, in good sense, charge the same rates that existed back in 1920. Because how much revenue is the government really expected to generate based on going back to this old system of things? It simply does not make sense, and therefore there needs to be a revaluation. But let me just share with you, for instance, what is the formula for calculating the property tax. So it's the annual rental value of your property. You minus 10% from that. You divide by 12, and then you find 3%. So the average household, if you were to do, for instance, let's say, an estimation of what it is your home could rent for. The average household in Trinidad and Tobago could probably rent for maybe $3,000, $4,000. If we're looking at an annual rental value of $36,000 using a monthly rental of $3,000. And when we apply the formula, it works out to roughly $81 a month, or about $972 per year in property tax. A simple tax that really could strengthen your title hold on your property. I mean, we hear all the time about persons complaining their property being stolen from them, fraud in the land registry department and so on. All of these things, that has been a source of concern for people. But if it is that you know that you are paying your tax religiously and you have your receipts to show, ideally it could in fact strengthen your title and provide proof with respect to should you find yourself in a similar situation and you have to present evidence to show that you do in fact have strong title hold to this particular property, right? But I wanted to read for you as well. Just give me 1 second here. An assessment that was done after Mr. Hawaii would have given his speech on at least 2 occasions. And it's called a briefing of the Property Tax Act. And this is based on an article that was published on September 27, 2013, entitled Current Status of the Property Tax Legislation. And it reads, at present, there are no laws in our statute books empowering the state to demand and collect property taxes except Act number 17 of 2009 that amended the Valuation of Land Act and Act number 18 of 1969. Those other pre-2010 laws have been repealed by the passing and promulgation of Act 18 of 2009. And the laws repealed at the end of 2009 were the Municipal Corporation Act was amended by the repealing of Part 5, the Land and Building Taxes Act, and the Tax Exemption Act. So under the current budget proposal, so Act number 18 of 2009 itself, assented to on 31st December 2009, was repealed by the People's Partnership Administration after they won in 2010 on an electoral platform of rescinding the said tax laws that was subjected to intense and unprecedented regime-changing public scrutiny and public demonstrations. Minister of Finance Larry Hawaii in his 2013-2014 budget statement, without holding the requisite public consultations, given the active involvement of the landed gentry in getting the 2009 Act outlawed, proposes to 1. Complete the necessary valuation of property procedures for the 4 classes of property, at least by 2017. Introduce an industrial property tax by July 2014, details of which are to be worked out. And this was a provision that was lifted from Schedule 1 of the 2009 Act that was pegged at 5 to 6% of the ATV, which is the annual taxable value. Bringing into being thereafter in 2015, a commercial property tax that was also a provision of the PNM Act of 2009. Introduce residential and agricultural property taxes by 2017 that are also in the 2009 Act and provide for relief measures for those who cannot pay or lack the means similar to the PNM Act of 2009. Reinstate the land and building taxes regime that was repealed in 2010 on the false assumption that the rates therein provisions are more lenient than those listed in the 2009 Act, even if it applies at a rate of 7.5% of the annual taxable value. He was of the view that this restoration of the land and buildings taxes antiquated regime will restore the pre-existing tax levels status quo that prevailed until 2009, but he did say during what fiscal period this would occur, and whether he abandoned his target of achieving universal targeting of up-to-date valuations that is the determining factor in any property taxation system. So he himself dubbed it the heart of any system of property taxation. Minister Hawaii does not realize and hitherto has not addressed the legal fact that property tax collection in the cities and boroughs is different from that of the land and building regime and was regulated by Part 5 of the 1990 Municipal Corporations Act. Now, the thing to be noted is that the land and buildings taxes was amended 16 times between 1920 to 1996. 16 times, in order to reflect the reality of the times that persons were living in then, in order to reflect the needs of the population then and how this tax could provide for their needs. This administration has for the last 8 years or so been spending an average annual budget of between $50 to $54 billion. A study would show that almost 85% or so of the government's annual budget goes to pay wages and salaries, taxes and wages and salaries, transfers and subsidies, leaving very little money behind in order for them to be able to provide for such things as road maintenance, road repair, the building of different types of infrastructure, and the like. But yet still, this has resulted in them and the government being the bane of much criticism from a significant section of the society. Let me give you another statistic. And this is some figures that I would have received with respect to the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation, their budgetary allocation for 2022. And I found some very interesting information here, right? Let me just get this here for you. The total budget received by the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation, which serves about 250,000 burgesses, was $164,340,000 in 2022. Of that $164 million, $110,146,000 went to personal expenditure for the payment of wages and salaries. Why? Because everybody seems to want to work in the corporation. Everybody wants to borrow work. Right? So you go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're back home. $110,146,000. Goods and services, $54 million. Minor equipment, $23,000. Current transfers and subsidies, $140,000. So only $54 million would have been applied to goods and services. Right? And what are the services that they're talking about? The very things that people always clamor for. We want better roads. We want the drains cleaned. We want our garbage collected. If it is that you have a pothole in your road, you want that to be patched too. All of these different things, $54 million. And almost double that, in fact, more than double that was paid in personnel expenditure. And this is the challenge that is faced throughout the public sector in Trinidad and Tobago, because again, there is the mindset that the best place to work is the government. But $164,340,000 spent, or allocated, sorry, for 2022. One of the points we need to note is that, and as I mentioned before, the Property Tax Act, the original Land and Buildings Act, 1920, and when we come forward to 2023, this was 103 years ago, having mentioned that the population size would have grown. In many communities in Trinidad and Tobago, you have new HDC developments, you have private developments, you have squatting developments, all of whom, the residents of all of these different developments require some level of government intervention with respect to the provision of roads and all of the different things that local government provides. And the government is saying that if it is that they do not have the major coffers, does not have the wherewithal to support the needs of all of these different burgesses, then perhaps we can ask the country to just dig a little deeper. Not much, just a little, for something that could benefit you directly. Because what we've been told is that the property taxes, once collected under the new system, is supposed to go to the regional corporation in which they would have been collected. So persons paying property taxes in the regional corporation of Tunapuna Piarco, the monies that you pay in property tax is supposed to go for the benefit of burgesses living in Tunapuna Piarco. Against what currently obtains, where this money is going to go into the consolidated fund, and then it is left to the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Local Government to decide what allocation would be provided to the various corporations. And when that money is finished, what do we hear from our councillors? We don't have money to help you. We don't have money to pave the roads. We don't have money to clean the drains. We don't have money to pay the garbage contractors. We don't have money to clean the sewers. And this has been a perennial problem that we continue to get. So every 3 years, well, going forward after the 14th of August, it's going to be every 4 years. So that when you go on the 14th of August and you cast your ballot, you take into account the fact that the person that you would be electing will be serving for a total of 4 years, no longer 3. Some of us can barely put up with our councillors for 6 months, far less 4 years. Therefore, it's very important that when you go out on the polls on August 14th, you make the right choice. You need to ensure that the person that you are electing, the person against whose name you will be putting your X, is someone that you genuinely believe is going to serve your needs for the next 4 years. Because I believe under the new act, the councillors are supposed to be full-time, which possibly means that they're going to be receiving higher salaries. But are they really going to be working for this salary? These improved working conditions for them, but what's in it for you? And this is always the question that citizens ask all the time. Hence the reason we would always see a low voter turnout, generally, for local government election. Citizens are more inclined to run to the polls for the general election. Why? Because we are more concerned with which party sits to the right side of the speaker in the lower house, as opposed to which party controls the gavel in the council chamber. And so what we are going to be doing over the course of the next few weeks is to provide information for you to have a better understanding of what local government is, how it functions, how it operates, what is the remit of the local government bodies, what is the remit of the Ministry of Works and Transport, because that is another problem that presents itself. Oftentimes the ministry gets blamed for roads that are the responsibility of the local government bodies. And then sometimes the local government bodies get blamed for roads that are the responsibility of Works and Transport. And that lends itself to the fact that citizens do not know or not informed as to how the two bodies work, who is responsible for what, and who you have to go to. So we would help you to understand what you have to go to your councillor for and what you have to go to your member of parliament for. Of course, the member of parliament and the councillor are supposed to work together to ensure that the services that are provided for the citizens who would have cast their ballot for them is the best that can be provided with the resources that are available at that point in time. And so we are going to be seeking to help you to be able to better understand that. But I make the point. We must look at the property tax from the perspective of a developing country. As Mr. Hawaii would have mentioned, in developed countries such as the United States, Canada, the UK, where property tax is a common thing, and it assists the government, it provides additional revenue for the government to be able to provide you with the services that you want. How often have we heard, or do we continue to hear persons say, the last time I saw my councillor was for election when they were passing around to get my vote? If you were to ask the average citizen in Trinidad and Tobago who their councillor is, they can't tell you. Unless they have some close relationship with the councillor, or on the off chance you have a councillor who is very active in their community, perhaps because they live in the community and they have genuine care and concern for what happens in the community, you may be able to see them. But otherwise to that, that's the problem that we faced or used to face every 3 years, now soon to be 4 years. And as I always make the point, your vote is non-refundable. So if it is after 6 months of having cast your ballot for a particular individual, and in that short space of time you're not going to get the service that you were hoping to get, you cannot go back to the EBC and say, I made a mistake, I want a refund of my vote. Once that vote is cast, it's cast for 4 years in the case of local government election, and of course 5 years in the case of general election. So this is not something to take for granted. We have afforded to us the right to vote, and this is something that a lot of people in other countries do not have. So again, it is not something for us to take for granted, which is why it's very important that we make the right decision on August 14th. When it is that the councillors, and right now, the candidates are in the process of walking the districts, soliciting votes. They're coming to your house, knocking door to door, asking you to support them, asking you to cast your ballot for them on election day. But what are they really bringing to the table? Now, I always make the point. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. If you have a candidate that is coming to you and is telling you, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that for you, you should be concerned. They are supposed to be asking you, what do you need me to do for you? They don't have a crystal ball, so they can't tell you what it is you need. Especially if it is that they don't live in your particular neighborhood or community. So how can they prescribe for you when it is they have not done a diagnosis, when they've not asked questions to find out from you what are your needs and what you expect? What are the more pressing issues? Also be wary of persons who would come making all manner of promises, having never served in a corporation before and not having a full understanding of how the corporation works. Because they are setting themselves and you up for a fall. Because when they make promises to you and then they go in, let's say they're successful at the election and they end up becoming councillors. And they realize that the system isn't what they thought it is. That it's not as easy as they thought it might have been to be able to get resources to satisfy every promise that they made. It would be difficult for some of them to come back to you and say, well, you know, I can't deliver on that. But you should be aware of that. So you need to have a conversation with all of these candidates, whether they be PNM, UNC, PEP, PDP, whoever. They're all coming to you and soliciting for the same vote. You need to have a conversation with all of them to find out where their head is at and whether or not these are persons who have the required skill set in order to run a corporation. This is another issue that for me, is a real bugbear. I have seen some of the candidates, and I'm not going to identify them by party, but I've seen on social media videos of candidates of different parties walking around neighborhoods and so on, and conversations that they are having with the Burgesses. And you can tell from some of these conversations, the posture and all of these different things, these persons may not be the ideal fit for a council. Understand, these are persons who would be sitting in a room every week, or however often that they meet, to make decisions on how hundreds of millions of dollars would be spent. I just called out for you that the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation in 2022 had an allocation of $164 million. That was given to them by central government to spend. You need to make sure that the persons, 12 or so or 15 or how many other persons sitting around that table making decisions on how this 164 million or whatever is the allocation for your particular corporation is, that they have the skill set and the wherewithal to be able to spend that money in a manner that would benefit the majority and not the minority. You see, and this is why it's important for parties to do a proper scrutiny when it is that you are doing your screening. It's not simply a case somebody come and they say, well, I want to be a candidate. And you ask them a few questions and perhaps they were able to answer the questions well or better than the other persons who would have been interviewed, and you decide to give them the opportunity. Yeah? So we go into a little break, and when we come back, we continue the conversation. Now, on the other side of 9 o'clock, we're going to open up the lines for you all to be able to call in and share your views on the topics that the topic that is being discussed today, and perhaps even make suggestions on some of the topics that you would like us to discuss going forward. So don't touch it there. We'll be back shortly.
Tired of wasting precious time at the bank applying for a loan, only to be denied? We understand your frustration. Here at Realtor Group of Companies, we take a different approach. Contact Saeed, Managing Director of Realtor Group of Companies and licensed moneylender at 238-6716, 242-7690 or 339-1670. Feel free to visit our office at number 14 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, or number 132 Superior Road, Victoria Village, San Fernando.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors, roti makers. Try Chic Lisha high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and whole wheat flour. Bleached flour and bromate flour is treated with chemicals that can cause cancer, and this is banned in Europe and many other countries. Chic Lisha flour offers a healthier option, being that it's unbleached and bromate free. It also has a finer grain and a softer texture, lower priced and conveniently packaged in 2 pound, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. Available at groceries and supermarkets. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Chic Lisha Limited at 665-3336 or 480-8715 or visit them at Warrenville, Canoopia. Chic Lisha Limited. Quality you can trust.
The Solid Agency, the standard for artiste management and development. Booking for an exclusive roster of the region's top-rated entertainers. The Solid Agency, the standard for event execution live and virtual, including fully loaded Shaggy and Friends, New York, Nigeria, and Antigua music festivals, Burgess Long Walk to Freedom, Bounty, Beanie Versus, to name a few. Make your career or your event solid. Contact us now, thesolidagency@gmail.com. Call 1-876-469-4005. Visit solidagency.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying locked to Real Issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain. And for those of you who may be joining us, or now joining us, yes, you're tuned into a new program here on Synergy TV. It's a program that's going to be running Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, effective, well, this week and in the lead up to the local government election of August 14th, 8 to 10 p.m., Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So you can be locked in, tuned in, where it is that we're going to be discussing issues, as we said, real issues that will be based on empirical data, facts and information, not based on hearsay and propaganda. So as far as possible, we're going to be inviting guests who will be coming in on the program, persons who would be versed in the various topics that we will be discussing, so that you can get the best information to be able to make the most informed decisions as we lead up to campaign August 14th, 2023. Now there's another side to the property tax that I wanted to touch on. A side that is not really being discussed. A side that has not really gotten as much attention as it should. And I speak specifically to the commercial side. Now, as you know, there will be different types of property taxes. So we would have the residential, we'll have the commercial, we'll have the industrial, and the agricultural. The focus more so has been on the residential side of things. And based on where the conversation is coming from or who is leading the conversation, we can understand why the focus has been placed there. You see, because the average citizen can identify to the residential tax, because for most of us, that is the tax to which we would be subject. But there are persons who own businesses and who would be subject to the other types of taxes, the industrial and the commercial. And I want you to consider something for a moment. When we look at the commercial side of things, consider, for instance, all of the different businesses that we currently have in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of malls, for instance, and I'll use that as an example. Some of them are fully tenanted and are collecting tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars every year in rental income. Take, for instance, and I'll just name a few. You have Grand Bazaar, West Mall. We have a new mall in Trin City, East Gates. We have Gulf City Mall, C3, and the I forget the name of the other mall down on South Side. But so many different malls that we have. All of these businesses are earning significant income every year, rental income, and are currently paying no property taxes. But yet still, the state is required to use scarce resources to provide garbage collection for some of these facilities, to provide roads, to ensure that the roads that are leading to these businesses are in good working order. But there is no contribution from a property tax side from the owners of these business establishments. Another example I will use, a popular one that I always use. We often hear the opposition say that, they talk about Faris Al-Rawi and the rental of his family's buildings, number 1 Alexandra Street, number 3 Alexander Street, and the amount of money that is paid in rent for these buildings. And it's been a source of concern for persons on the other side of the government. We've heard all kind of spurious claims that it's $23 million a month, albeit that is not a correct figure. But if we had to go by that, and I'm mentioning this here for persons who would have heard that and who would have internalized it, latched onto it, and would have developed some level of hatred for the property tax, I want you to consider this. If in fact that is the case and all of this money is being paid, don't you think it's only right that the state, or you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, should get back some of that rental income in the form of property tax? Because right now, the only benefit that you're really getting from it is income tax, but no property tax. So the income tax money that is being paid by the owners of these various businesses is simply going back into developing the infrastructure that they benefit from. So from the property tax side, none is being paid. Millions of dollars are being earned in rental income. I mean, the state rents buildings all over the place to house government ministries, government departments. For instance, right now, the Ministry of Health is constructing its new headquarters just on the eastern side of the Savannah. And once that is completed and they move in, they will be moving out of the current building that they occupy on Park Street, which, according to the Prime Minister at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, currently costs the state about $800,000 a month. That's close to $10 million a year. One landlord is receiving in rental income from one ministry, one building. No property tax is being paid on that. But yet still the state is expected to maintain the roadways and all of the other facilities that are provided for the comfort of persons who use these buildings, persons who go to these buildings, and no property tax being paid. And because we are not having that conversation with respect to that side of the property tax, we've been trained and cultured to focus only on one aspect, the residential side, which affects you. And we see it as an additional burden, that things are so hard in the country, and we already can't afford so many different things, and now the government wants to come and burden us with an additional tax. But again, bearing in mind the government's revenue position. And if it is that we are all out promoting the abolition of property tax across the board, we don't want any commercial, residential, agricultural, nothing. It means that all of these businesses that are generating all of this income, rental income, will continue to benefit. But then we see the government wants to make the rich richer. But ask yourself the question, who really is making the rich richer? Who really? Who is standing in the way of the implementation of the property tax? We need to take off our selfish blinkers for a moment and consider $972 on average, or let's say maybe $1,400, $1,500 for the year, as opposed to the hundreds of millions or maybe even billions of dollars that is being foregone in much needed government revenue because the business side of things is getting away from paying property taxes. Another example, the banks. We're always complaining about how banks are digging out the eyes of the average citizen with their predatory fees that you have to pay $15 to $20 a month in service fee to maintain your account. When all you do, money comes into your account and the money leaves the account. But yet still the bank charges you a fee for that. And if, when that fee is due, there isn't sufficient money in your account for that fee to come out, what happens? The bank puts your account into overdraft, and then they charge you a fee, an overdraft fee in addition to the standard fee that they normally charge. So when any money comes into that bank account, what happens? The bank has to take out what is owed to them first, and whatever is left over, you get. Every year the banks are boasting billions of dollars in profits this year attributable to shareholders. Republic Bank, Scotia Bank, First Citizens, RBC. Billions of dollars in profits. Yet these institutions are not paying any property tax for all of the branches that they have all over the place. No property tax being paid. But yet still right outside the establishment, the government has to find money to pay CPEP, to cut the grass, to ensure that the roadway leading to these establishments are in good condition, proper condition. So it's a further burden on the state for already limited resources, but yet still we are insisting we want no property tax. We must axe the tax, or we want to go back to the old system of land and building taxes with ridiculous rates that were ideal for the time in which that particular piece of legislation came into play 103 years ago. We are now in 2023. How can you be promoting tax rates from 103 years ago? It is inconceivable. It makes absolutely no sense. We have public servants who are complaining that they are still working on 2013 salaries in 2023. 2013 was just 10 years ago. So if it is inconceivable to be working on 2013 salaries in 2023, how can it make sense to be paying 1920 tax rates in 2023 when you have a much larger population, 4 times the size it was in 1920, where the needs of the population has significantly increased since 1920. More schools, more bridges, more roads, more need for sewage services, more need for garbage services. And therefore, if it is that the state is to find money from an already strained treasury to provide these services, it's only so much that you can get. And especially when you have more than half, close to 60 to 75% of the annual budget that is provided to these corporations going into personnel expenditure, to pay wages and salaries to persons who work in the corporation. And there are still persons out there who are looking for work, in these corporations, but the corporations' hands are tied in terms of how much more employing they could do because of the limited resources that they have. But if it is that there is the introduction of the property tax, there's a little more in the kitty so that they could probably end up hiring somebody in the area, somebody in the neighborhood who is desperately in need of work. Now, I know some people listening may be saying, now, they're still not sold on the idea of the property tax. And that's all right. It is your right so to do. But we know that Trinidadians and Tobagonians tend to spend money on the things that are important to them. But I continue to make the point, and I will stress, people will continue to resist the things that they don't understand. If they don't see what's in it for them and how they could benefit from the property tax regime, the property tax system, they will continue to resist it because they see it as simply an additional expense that they do not need. And that is why when your candidates come around, it is important for you to ask them the questions. If they can't give you a simple explanation of what the new legislation proposes and how local government reform is going to improve the delivery of services to you, then you need to think twice. Now, I'm not telling you don't vote. Absolutely not. But you need to ensure that you put some of these candidates, as they say, put the fire to their feet. They need to make sure that when they go into this new job, after August 14th, that they go in there fully aware of what it is they're getting themselves into and that they are capable of doing the job. Failure to do such is just going to end up in the same thing that we've had to endure for the last how many decades? Having people in positions who are not doing the work that the people would have voted them in office for. You want to see a councillor who is, well, here's the thing. If your councillor understands the work that they have to do and what their job entails, then you don't even need to see the councillor because their work is going to speak for itself. And so therefore there needs to be some sort of training mechanism in place to help these candidates understand what it is that they have to do. I personally would not feel comfortable if it is that in my corporation, you have out of maybe 15 persons sitting in this council, 10 of them don't understand basic finance. And yet still I'm asking you and I'm depending on you and trusting you to be able to spend $164 million or $200 million in 12 months in an equitable manner, in a manner that makes sense, when some of you have not even run, as they say, a parlor. What experience do you have in the management of that type of money? Do they understand that being a councillor is not just simply sitting around a table and people coming to you and sharing their problems and you take note of it, and then you go to council and come back and tell the people, well, we don't have money to help you? Does that really make sense? They need to have a grasp and an understanding as to how the new legislation is going to work. And as I said before, that is the intention, what we are going to be providing you, that information over the course of the next few weeks. Tomorrow night, the expectation is that we would have a seasoned local government practitioner, a current chairman of one of the regional corporations should be joining us as a guest tomorrow night to be able to share some information, to walk us through local government, to demystify some of the terminology in local government, such as what is the real role and function of a councillor? What is the role and function of an alderman? When the council meets, how are decisions taken? How are decisions prioritized? When it is that you have a Burgess with a pressing issue, how is it that that is handled? Is your councillor equipped and trained sufficiently to be able to make cogent argument on your behalf so that you can get the help that you are looking for, the help for which you would have given them your vote? You trust the promises that they make, but as they say, a promise is a comfort to a fool. We cannot handle another 4 years of broken promises. It starts with local government. Unfortunately, in a lot of the campaigns that we're listening to now, a lot of the platforms, we're hearing rhetoric and we're hearing arguments, we're hearing discourse that focuses on general election issues. So we're hearing about fighting crime, we're hearing about stand your ground laws, we're hearing about gun legislation. These things will not change with local government. This is not local government issues. And if it is that we are not having that local government discussion with the people, we are asking them to go to the polls on August 14th to make an uninformed decision. So after the polls and the results are declared, and whoever is the winner, whoever is the loser, and everybody settles into their various corporations, how are we going to see things change? Can you expect to see any difference in your community? Or are you just going to have another 4 years of griping and complaining about your councillors? Some of us are faced with a situation where, unfortunately, our party may have chosen to select the same councillor that you might have had for the last 3.5 years. In some cases, perhaps the councillor was a non-performer, but the various parties in their wisdom would have made a decision, to select these persons once again. What are we going to do to ensure that this time around they do the work? That this time around is not just going to be the same old where they collect a salary every month and you, the Burgess, have to suffer for 4 years, no longer 3 years, and I have to keep stressing that point. Now we need to look, and as I started off by discussing the issue of the property tax. I know it's not a topic that everybody loves, but I continue to stress, and I believe that as we get more information as to how it's going to work, and if it is that we can get some sort of comfort that the money is going to be used for the best, in the best interest of the Burgesses, then perhaps we might have some more people come around to the idea. For now, I know in some cases it's perhaps wishful thinking, but look at the platforms that are discussing these issues. Look at the platforms that are providing you with the information on these issues. These are the issues that we need to be discussing, not necessarily the general election issues. The time will come for that soon enough. General election is due in 2 years. So as soon as this election is over, I imagine that campaigning is going to start in earnest for 2025. Whichever party is going to come out with the bragging rights after August 14 is not going to give up or to rest on that momentum. They're going to try to take as much advantage of it going into 2025. I've heard the leader of the opposition say, this is the first step. August 14 is the first step to 2025, to victory in 2025. So for some people, this election is just about bragging rights. It's not about improved local government services. And the unfortunate thing in that, people, is that when you choose to sit back and say, well, I'm not going to vote because this district that I live in is an opposition district, so my one vote will not count. So what is the point? Understand that aside from your vote deciding who the next councillor will be for your district, it also decides whether or not your party is going to be able to get an alderman to represent your interests in the council, in the corporation. So even if you live in a corporation that might be predominantly, what's the word I'm looking for? It is dominated by the party that you do not support. Perhaps they have always had the majority of councillors and so on, or perhaps your party has never had a councillor in that particular corporation. You can still get an alderman to ensure that the other party is kept in check, an alderman who can look after the interest, your interests. And you need to ensure that you go out and talk to as many people as possible to come out and cast their ballot. Do not put it in your head, or has always been the case, yeah, this party done win already. Yeah, this is a PNM seat, or this is a UNC seat, so my vote is not necessary. Every single vote counts. Every vote counts. Exercise your franchise when you go out on August 14th. Make the right decision, right? Because you don't want to end up in a situation where a councillor is selected who does not have your best interest at heart. And because you are lackadaisical, and a lot of people that you know were in the same boat, you all didn't go out and cast your ballot, and then on election night you realize that the margin of victory for the other party was 10 votes or 15 votes, especially in an election where we normally see a low voter turnout. Albeit, we might see a bit of a change this year because there is a certain level of enthusiasm for this particular local government election, more so than we've seen in previous years, and for obvious reasons. There are persons who have issues with the government and who feel that this is an opportunity for them to be able to register their discontent. I don't think that necessarily that is the best motive to go to the polls with on August 14th. But whatever it takes to bring you out, go out and cast your ballot, right? And ensure that the right person is in place, that the right person is representing you, and that the right person can provide you with all of the information that you need. So, I think with respect to that particular issue, we could probably rest on that for tonight. And as we get our guests to come in later on this, well, next week, we will delve into that a little bit more. But I wanted to touch on one other quick issue before we get to the next ad set, which is coming up. And yesterday, the Minister of Finance would have had a press conference in which he would have spoken to the issue of the latest Moody's rating, which saw Trinidad and Tobago's credit rating upgraded from stable to positive. And that, in some quarters, is good news. For some people, it is not good news. But it's certainly good news for the country, because it helps to ensure that should the government need to borrow money in the international market, that we will be considered a good client, that we wouldn't have to be facing significant interest rates with respect to our borrowings. And the minister would have spoken about that at his press conference yesterday. And one of the reasons that he would have advanced that Moody's would have provided this improved rating has to do with the way that the government has been managing the country's fiscal situation. In fact, some of us remember that 2022 was the first year in 14 years that the government of Trinidad and Tobago would have been able to realize a budget surplus. And the minister would have announced yesterday that as at the end of May, the government's financial position is currently again in surplus of some $600 million, with just 3 months left to go in the government's financial year, which ends on September 30th. Now, the minister did indicate that there is usually a rush in the last 3 months to spend money with respect to the public sector investment program. And while ideally he would like to see another budget surplus as last year, he is not anticipating that. But what he does anticipate is that the projected budget would be significantly less, budget deficit would be significantly less than what had been previously projected, which is good news for Trinidad and Tobago, because it means that the government, the amount of borrowings is going down, debt to GDP ratio is going down, which improves our standing on the international scene. And we know one of the complaints that we often get from persons is that the government is borrowing too much money. Debt to GDP ratio is too high. The government is borrowing money that our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to have to end up paying. Right now, based on central bank statistics, the government pays approximately $5 billion a year in interest on debt that would have been accrued from the previous administration, and debt that would have been incurred over the last 8 years as a result of challenges that the government would have faced with respect to its revenue position. Low oil prices, low energy prices, which would have seen a decline in government revenues, forcing the state to have to borrow money in order to make up for the shortfall. But the current management, and this is what Moody's is saying, that based on the way that Mr. Imbert has been managing the economy, managing the country's finances, in particular, the windfall in energy from energy revenues that resulted as a result of the Ukraine-Russia war, that they are confident that once he continues along that trajectory, that the country's financial position is going to be on an upswing. Which means that all the talk we keep hearing about the economy in shambles, and the economy is in free fall, and the economy is on the brink of collapse, the data does not support that. The statistics do not support that. When we have companies such as Prestige Holdings declaring $1.1 billion in revenue for 2022, when we have companies like Prestige Holdings declaring revenue of $637 million for the first 6 months of this year, an increase of $126 million from the corresponding period last year. Does that speak to an economy that is in shambles? Does that speak to an economy that is in free fall? Does that speak to an economy that is on the brink of collapse? You see, we have to be wary of the messengers of doom, who always preaching gloom and doom in order to get persons to be riled up, to be upset with the government, to be making demands that the government cannot satisfy. Moody's would have also spoken about the issue of subsidies and how the government has treated with that whole issue as it pertains to fuel prices. The decision by the government to cap the fuel subsidy at about $1 billion, freeing up about $2 to $3 billion extra that could be spent on other goods and services for the benefit of the wider citizenry. It would be good to take a read of the report and understand what was the thinking and the motive behind that improved rating by the Moody's rating company, as opposed to what would have happened in 2015, where we would have suffered a downgrade from stable to negative, and the reasons why that were proffered as to why that happened. So that's just some of the issues that I wanted to touch on so far for the evening. As I said, when we come back on the other side of 9 o'clock, we will be opening the lines and giving you an opportunity to be able to call in and just to share your thoughts on a couple of the issues that were discussed tonight. So stay locked, we'll be back shortly.
A warm welcome awaits you at Alicia's Palace, a hotel nested in the quiet hills of Lady Chancellor at 1 3/4 mile mark just above the Emperor Valley Zoo. Alicia's Palace is the perfect place to combine pleasure and business. A 24-hour facility with full amenities, including air-conditioned rooms with Wi-Fi, mini-fridge, microwave, and cable TV. Designed to provide you with quiet comfort and convenience. The perfect staycation location where you can swim in the outdoor pool, soak in the jacuzzi, or simply soak up the sun, all at an affordable price. Relax and enjoy local dishes in an eco-friendly environment. At Alicia's Palace, they conduct steam cleaning of all rooms and common areas in keeping with current health and safety protocols. Whether it's a special occasion or simply just to get away, Alicia's Palace combines affordability and quality service. For more details, check out their Facebook page, Alicia's Palace HQ, or give them a call at 621-1017 or 624-8553.
Green Dot continues to deliver internet connectivity to a wide range of communities in Trinidad. With our combination fiber and wireless network, you get the service you need wherever you live. Stream your favorite shows, enjoy online tuition, stay in touch with your work team, and connect with friends and family with internet service at a price you can afford. As communities continue to grow, we continue to deliver. Call 224-GDOT or visit gd.tt today. Green Dot, improving and simplifying lives.
Are you stressed and worried by problems? Then meet Priest Santosh G. Priest is specialized in palm, face, photo, and date of birth reading and gives solutions to problems in marriage, relationships, love, business, job, health, and removes all negativity and bad luck permanently and gives good luck and also gives lifelong protection. Home consultation is done. Call Priest Santosh on 756-8401. That's 756-8401.
If you're planning an event, make us your first option. At Reality of a Dream, we can make your event memorable. We can assist in planning your corporate functions, moderate gatherings, family occasions, christenings, and more. We also cater for weddings and other special occasions. Our newly renovated venue includes a majestic entryway, which takes you along a path to a fantastic indoor facility which can accommodate up to 80 dining guests. A recently completed fully air-conditioned, beautifully designed wing, which maintains the theme and flow of Reality of a Dream, adds 30 extra seats for dining guests. In total, we can now seat a total of 110 dining guests. Come see for yourself the splendor that awaits you. Walk along the path and make your way to the breathtaking, well-maintained swimming pool and gazebo, and also the entire grounds of Reality of a Dream. We've also updated the Dream Suite, which comes with all modern conveniences, where guests can enjoy the feeling of an exquisite retreat overlooking the entire area. Reality of a Dream caters to professional events. We provide secured parking for guests, so call us at 332-6880 and ask for Harriet, located at number 15 Moses Avenue, San Juan. Reality of a Dream, making dreams come true every day.
My parents' generation grew up with Royal Castle. From the first restaurant in 1968, when that distinctive, tempting aroma hit the air. Like never before, fried chicken with a special blend of local seasonings and a one-of-a-kind flavor down to the bone. Today, Royal Castle still have that same delicious taste, and I love it too. And the kids, they have more to enjoy. For me, the Castle is more than just nice food. It's we own, part of me and you, and is the real flavor of TNT.
Welcome back. And if you're just joining us, you're tuned into Real Issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain. As we indicated before, it's a new program, new talk show program, where we'll be addressing the real issues that are of interest to you, the citizens, as part of your daily life. And we stress upon the real issues, not the pretend issues, not the makeup issues, not the issues that people tell you should be important to you, but are not providing you with the information that you need to make informed decisions. So we can open the lines and take your calls at 235-5325 is the number to call. So you can get in on the program, share your views. What is your position on the issue of the property tax? What is your position with respect to, how do you feel about the latest Moody's rating? Or you could share any other issues that you would like for us to discuss in the coming days. 235-5325. Right. Yeah, so in the meantime, let me just pull this up here. Right, so we were mentioning before the issue of the state of the economy in particular. The claims about, all right, so I think we have a call on the line. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Dominic. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, it's nice seeing you on TV.
Thank you.
So you know all your followers, and I'm following you on Synergy TV. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I have one question. Now I understand the property tax. I understand all what is being explained on the property tax.
Yes.
But something I am not hearing much of, because I was listening to Colin Inberg explaining some of the details of the property tax. And as far as senior citizens are concerned,
yes,
he was explaining something like senior citizens may or may not have to pay property tax. Can you deliberate on that for me?
Right. So with respect to the senior citizens, my understanding is that they would be it would be assessed on a case-by-case basis, but they would be entitled to get a deferral on the property tax if it is that they are not in the financial position to pay. The important thing to note is that deferral doesn't mean that you're not going to have to pay it. It just means at a later date. So perhaps when the property is inherited later on after the senior citizen passes, whoever inherits the property would then be in a position to be able to satisfy the tax. But I'm sure the state is not going to be so draconian to tell you need to pay all of these taxes at the same time, given the fact that it would have been a deferral for an older citizen. So they would be able to work something out for you to assist in the payment of that. We have another call on the line. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good night.
Yes, sir.
I must say, great program as usual. Good program. Congratulations on this debut, and I know in the coming weeks, it's going to be hot.
Indeed.
And I must say that what you would have said relative to the whole tax and so forth, I hope people understand how it operates. Because, you know, as I say, in this country, it have about 100%.
Right.
49% of them doesn't know if they're living here, if they're coming, or if they're going.
Right.
Right? No, it's a fact.
Yes.
49% of them, they're just living here because they live in Trinidad. You understand?
Yes.
And the other 51% know they know the rights and what they living here and living here. But we had to deal with that 49% who just here because they just living here.
Correct.
And let them understand the reality of where they live and where they exist. But in a nutshell, great program for the first night, and we will get more in tune as the weeks and the months come along.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
great program.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, and I must say, I think we have another call.
Roman?
Hello?
Yeah, good night.
Hi, good night.
Good evening, Mr. Roman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just watching your program here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the best, greatest analysts. I'm 78 years old, and I follow politics.
Yes.
A person going through and reading, and when you get me there with a lesson of 1920, and this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of people, they don't listen to the rhetoric. Because I'm watching two channels right now,
Yes.
about government and the government and the government. As you explained, I have dealt with some councils in Port of Spain EU.
Mm-hmm.
They have been coming and complaining for the last 10 years about this engineer. After they pass money,
Yes.
from the council, money to be working in the areas in this Port of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To please pick up the rubbish thing. This engineer is not passing and coming and seeing you work. So the poor little councils and them young girls and them, they get frustrated. But
Yes.
they have a good backup, good talk and lead it through. But the engineer and the CEO, if they don't pass the money, they stall the councils and them progress in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Then the area be costing them. Because they ain't doing nothing.
Yes.
They ain't doing nothing. But Richard, the CEO and the engineer to pass you. And that's your important thing. I can't hear them people complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the Prime Minister will say he wants to know where the correspondence comes today. They have money on the road. They hear to drive through the road. He said they drive through the road like everybody else.
Yes.
And they have the money there. The same thing when she go there, right there. They don't clean it, they don't start to clean the drain. Eh? And the mayor is saying no money, they're collecting the money in the market. Eh? The poor vendors down there. But then again, the poor little council who get the bad end of the stick. As you say, when the council then come wrong, because I'm going to finish. Ask them, what about the reform? And this reform has been going on for all the years. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But somebody will run by follow up on the program.
Yes.
I like to be there, and I just get educated, you know, that was, and I could talk and explain to you. And you know, I good
Thank
program.
you. Yeah, and that's a very important point to note. I think we have another call on the line. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good night, Dominic.
Hi, good night.
It's nice to see you on cable. You know how long I haven't watched cable, Dominic. You pulled me out.
Yes.
All I be watching my movies and things, but you know, I have to get that support.
Thank you.
You look well on TV, and I just want to say when you spoke about the property tax, it's amazing that we complain so much about the property tax and what the money we have to pay. However, we make time to pay money for our cable bill. We pay for our electricity bill. We pay for our data plan. We pay for all the nails, the hair, everything, food bill, everything. And this is just another bill to pay, because what it does, it gives you a sense of power in terms of, the property is yours, you're paying for it, it is being upkept, that the taxes from that will help in your community, it will help in the on your street, it will help in with picking up garbage and all that. So it's a whole trickle-down effect.
Yes.
But not only that, persons are living right, they have properties in the United States of America, and they have to pay in U.S., and they make sure they pay the taxes for the properties across in America every month or every year, whenever it's due, from right in Trinidad. And they will go away to live, and they will pay all the taxes. If they park the car on this side of the road, and if it's in moving time, that have to tax for that. Every single thing is taxed in those developed countries, and they go and they pay it. And they come back and say, oh my gosh, in Canada the streets are so clean, and oh my gosh, the roads are that. But all those things are done by taxes. But they also have the challenges there in terms of pothole and all that, so they'll make it seem as if only Trinidad have pothole, and Trinidad have this, and it's the same thing. However, when you pay your taxes across here, you can complain if it's not done. If you don't pay your taxes, you have nothing. So I am all for property tax. I'm all for local government reform, because I want to see our communities better. I want to see our burgesses that they are more happy with it. I like to see the corporation more independent. They don't have to wait on the central government, all that. So bring it on, and people, you need to go out and exercise your right, universal suffrage, and vote. So whatever party of your choice, however, come out and vote, because when you don't, you can't just come and complain when things are not done. So again, blessed night, and reach home safely, and I will be tuning in the next night. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Do we have another call on the line? Hello, good evening. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Dominic.
Hi.
So nice to see you on the live tonight.
Thank you.
Dominic, you know what my concern is?
Mm-hmm.
My concern is this election, as far as I see, from all these other makeup and fly-by-night parties.
Yes.
They're looking at it as a general election.
Mm-hmm.
So they out there just talking about Rowley must go and Rowley must go. They're acting as if when the election takes place, that Dr. Rowley will be unseated.
Yes.
They're not really taking this election for what it is. It's local government reform. But all these other parties I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm seeing on Facebook, all they're doing is telling people about the property tax, and they won't have to pay property tax, and all these set of nonsense that they're going on with. And the thing is, they kind of getting on to the young people especially, who not taking the time to understand what this local government election is. So sometimes it really gets to me when I look on Facebook and I see all the nonsense that I am seeing. People not seeing that the property tax is to help all the communities, everybody, all of us in totality. What they're doing is Rowley must go. That is what everything is about, is Rowley must go. So the impression is after the 14th of August, they could unseat Rowley and Rowley will go. But you know what? I am praying. And there are many people praying.
Right.
Many of us praying, and we know that God is able. Have a good night, Dominic. I'm enjoying the program on the Facebook and on the television. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you so much. Do we have another call online? Hello, good evening.
Yeah, hello.
Yes,
Good
evening.
night. Good night.
Good night, caller.
Glad to see a new change on this station.
Yes.
And the topic you talk, Karen, is very good. Let people who have sense understand. And I hope the youth and everybody come out and put the vote in the right place. It's nice. I feel so happy to see a new change to this station.
Yes.
Because all you're getting is one set of talala right through. So I'm glad to see this change.
Thank you. Hello, do we have another caller online? Hello, good evening.
Pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Dominic Ruin.
Good evening, sir.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
My TV not shaking, it's not freezing.
Very, very good.
So I'm good. Dominic, I'll tell you this. How it is today, there is minimal accountability.
Yes.
And when money goes missing, the Burgess is not going to go and ask the councillors where the money gone, because as far as they are concerned, more could come from central government.
Yes.
And there's no accountability. So at the end of the day, we will never get answers or consequences to the $300,000 that's missing from Superior Borough Council. We will never get answers to the $1,500. I don't know, maybe not in our lifetime, as to with what happened in Rio Claro.
Yes.
We may not get answers to what happened in Sangre Grande. We may not get answers to what happens in Cuba-Tal Paro Regional Corporation. But because it is now where accountability is important, and they have to answer not only to me, but they have to answer to an auditor. There is where the difference lies.
Yes.
And now people will begin to say, well, okay, I now see where my money going. And they will be able to say, listen, I have seen, okay, this has been done, that has been done, how much it costs, and all of these things. But when it goes missing, there will be a price to pay. And I learned this today on another frequency.
Yes.
That certain people, councillors, will have to answer. And if they cannot answer, and if they cannot provide the evidence, then there is a lot of police and jail involved. And that is what is important, that we, the Burgesses, the people, the small people, want to know where our money going and why it is we can't get certain amenities that we need to get fixed. You understand?
Yes.
And therein lies the big difference between what is happening now and what will happen effective in the next 4 years. And therefore, that is why I am not only voting for a party, I am voting for that change that is going to come, that will give me the answers to the questions I never got answers to back in the day or in present time. I am looking towards in other words, I am looking towards the future.
Yes.
And that to me, sir, is important. You understand? Because we cannot continue living in 1920, as you indicated earlier, or 1930, up to today, and not getting answers to questions of monies that have been spent, and people walking away with living in their big mansions and so on, and there are no consequences to their actions.
Yes.
And that, to me, sir, is what is important. So I want to thank you for the information, Dominic. Continue. Welcome. I applaud this. And I look forward to listening to you not only today, but into the future. Thanks again.
Thank you. Before I take the next call, let me just read this quickly, because one of the scare tactics that is being used to get persons to oppose to the property tax has been the claim that if under the new Property Tax Act, if you don't pay a property tax, you're likely to have your property seized by the state. Let me read for you Section 14C of the old Land and Building Taxes Act, which the opposition says they would be inclined to implement or to bring back should they return to office in 2025. And it reads, where the amount of tax is not paid on or before the 31st of March in the year next following the lands and buildings in respect of which tax is payable are liable to be forfeited to the state. So the old Land and Buildings Tax Act, the one that preceded 2009 that was repealed by the Manning administration, clearly identifies in Section 14C that if you don't pay your taxes by March the 31st, In the following year, your property is liable to be seized by the state, forfeited for payment of your taxes. So when we try to paint the current Property Tax Act as being this draconian act, that they're going to come and take your property, the old Land and Building Taxes Act had that entrenched in it, right? So I'm reading things in this act that speaks to, for instance, and just consider the rates that this proposes, and it makes no sense really. Let me see if I get this here. Buildings usually described as barracks containing separate tenements severally occupied shall be taxed at a rate of 96 cents for each separate tenement, whether such buildings form part of any structure for the manufacture or preparation of produce or not. In 2009, we're talking about 96 cents per year. Can 96 cents pay for all of the things that you want to demand of your local government corporations? When we want to ensure that your garbage is picked up on a regular basis, when you want to ensure that the grass along the street is cut on a regular basis, you want to ensure that wherever you put your garbage that you don't have large rodents. All of these different things. You want to ensure that that your bridges are well kept. When there is flooding, you want the first person you turn to is the councillor. You need help from the corporation. You want compensation. You expect the councillor to come with cleaning supplies and all of these different things to assist. And all of these things cost money. And we have to understand that when allocations are made to the corporations, it is not done in anticipation of an area flooding. So these, what they call acts of God, when these things happen, it is outside of what allocations would have been made for. So monies that would have been earmarked for other things now has to be wired or rerouted to take care of the damage that would have been done by these properties, by the flood to your property. And there are areas where the flooding happens year after year after year. And if it is that the situation isn't improved, we talk about we want the rivers dredged and we want the drains dredged, the drains cleaned. All of these different things requires money. And it certainly is more expensive in 2023 to do these things than it was in 1920. So how can we be proposing? You see, beware of election gimmicks, folks. When people come to you and make promises and tell you that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and it's impractical, which is why in 2010, in the lead up to the general election, the promise that was made to axe the tax was never realized. It was never fulfilled. But yet we see a video is being shared of Keith Rowley in 2015 saying that the claim that he and the PNM would bring back property tax if they were to be elected is a lie. And then look, they are now proposing the property tax. There's another side to that, where Dr. Rowley at the time, who was the leader of the opposition, was making the point that the claim that we are going to bring back the property tax is untrue because the law says that property tax is there. The People's Partnership never repealed the Property Tax Act, so therefore Dr. Rowley and the PNM couldn't bring back something that was already in place. But when we use subterfuge and dishonesty in order to hoodwink the population, when we try to use the ignorance of the population, and let's face it, we have a lot of people in the country who are intellectually lazy and will not take the time to go and do the research, will not say, okay, this isn't sounding right. Let me do my own research rather than run with what's popular. I see it all the time on social media, the comments. I listen on the radio and hear the comments that persons are making totally uninformed. And you are going to the polls on August 14 to make a decision, an uninformed decision, a decision that is driven by propaganda, a decision that is driven by untruths, a decision that is driven by misinformation and in some cases downright lies. Should we not be wary of politicians who have to use those tactics to get your vote? Speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may. But when you know that the truth is not in your favor, what do? You use lies and you play on people's ignorance. And again, and I use the word ignorance lack of knowledge. We have, unfortunately, in this country, a lot of headline readers. Persons who go on social media, they see headlines come up and they jump in the comment box rather than open the post to read it in its entirety, to understand what is being said. And it is because of that you have a lot of people on social media fighting each other, cursing each other, persons you've never seen, you've never met. And one comment could lead to a whole cuss out on social media. Why? Because of misinformation and propaganda. We need to hold our politicians to book. There is a certain level of decorum that we expect from our politicians. And it is not only inside the house, but we expect it outside as well. Especially when it is that you intend to use social media to get your points across. When you intend to use social media to share views, and you do so in a very, a less than flattering manner. The use of certain words, certain claims. Understand, social media is international. And when a person hits share, there is no telling how far that post is going to reach, whose eyes are going to view it, and what opinions they are going to form of Trinidad and Tobago. When you see a senator making some of the most derogatory remarks about the Prime Minister, what example are we setting for the next generation? So we go to, I think, another break, folks, and when we come back, we'll continue to take your calls at 235-5325. So stay locked, we'll be right back.
Presents the ultimate Spice Mass experience for 2023. Moulin Rouge! Moulin Rouge! A road experience unlike any other in Grenada. From Juve to on the road Monday and Tuesday. Get in your section. And play a mass. From Jab and Color Juve to Monday and Tuesday on the road with Lady of the Night, Lost, Temptress, Cabaway, Can-Can, Deja Vu, Le Bouger, and more. Bashik Carnival is the all-inclusive, quality entertainment, outstanding customer service. Log on to BashirCarnival.com for all the details and get into Moulin Rouge Bashir Carnival Ultimate Spice Mass Experience for 2023.
The rainy season has begun. Don't wait until your roof is falling into call. Contact Murphy's Roofing to get all your roofing services done now. They also specializes in roof installation, roof repairs, roof cleaning, roof painting, construction, framing, guttering, undersealing, gypsum and suspended ceiling, steel fabrication, and also supplies all roofing materials. And 10% off labor, 5% off material on new install only, and 5% off other services. So contact them today at 3567663 or WhatsApp to 987663. Or check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Murphy's Roofing System or Twitter at Murphy System.
Indian psychic astrologer and spiritual healer Master Sanjeev is here to help you. Find out about your past, know your present and future by palm, face, photo and patra reading. Master Sanjeev can solve business or family problems, love, marriage or divorce problems, enemy problems, evil spirit and bad luck removal, jealousy and curse, bad luck removal and spiritual healing. Call Master Sanjeev at 486-2255. He's an expert in removing and destroying black magic. Services available all over Trinidad and Tobago. Just call Master Sanjeev at 486-2255.
welcome back. And you're inside The Real Issues with Dominic Romain. And we continue to take your calls at 235-5325. So you're welcome to call in and share your thoughts on what would have been discussed this evening. Or any general issue that you might be a pressing or burning issue for you, and you just want to get your thoughts or your perspective out in the public. So 235-5325. Right, so we were discussing the issue, and I think we have a call on the line. Hello, good night.
Good night, Dominic. How are you doing, son?
I am good, sir.
Yes, very good. I've listened intently to your discussion or discourse on property tax.
Yes.
And I think it's very informative.
Thank you.
And I think, as you quite rightly said, one of the important things in Trinidad and Tobago, people make choices because they are not properly informed, and well educated on it.
Right.
And if the right thinking people are given the information about matters, they will make the right decision.
Correct.
And I'm happy that you're bringing on persons who would educate and inform the public about local government reform. But I just want to make two quick comments. One, on the property tax.
Yes.
I'm making it as an individual. I'm seeing it as an individual. I know there are consequences for the nation and stuff.
Yes.
When I make an estimate of the property tax I may have to pay, it turns down to be $3 a day. And I'm asking myself, because a bottle of water is about $3-4 a day.
Yes.
So if I drink a bottle of water every day, it's like pay my property tax.
Correct.
And when I drink my bottle of water every day, if you're outside, and you can't then you buy a bottle of water.
Yes.
And that is like that. And you know what I get for paying that $3 every day? I have a document in my hand knowing that my property still remains in my hand, and that I can pass my property to my children, and it can move from one generation to the next.
Yes.
That's the evidence that I have as a citizen that the property belongs to me. And I'm seeing it as an individual. And I'm looking at the fact that there are 193 nations in the United Nations, and 95% of them pay property tax.
Yes.
So I'm hearing in Trinidad and Tobago a discussion, somebody saying, don't pay property tax. And I'm asking why? Because if I know that when I pay my property tax, I have a document in my hand, and if I know that it is just costing me just like a little bottle of water at $3, and some people paying as low as $1.25 a day, because the lowest rate is $456 a year.
Yes.
Based on you have Modern House 1, Modern House 2. And so really, I think we could break it down to the business of a day. You're paying $1.25 a day. And you know what you get for that? Improved services, management in your community, improved services and a better quality of life.
Yes.
For $1.25 a day. Or, in some instances, for $3 a day. And that is my point. I take it very personal. And I like the program that you have. And the other quick thing I want to say is that you made the point. Voting has consequences. And if you do not make the right choice, there are some consequences that you face over a 4-year period. So, and the other thing is that there is no second place in voting. You know, you don't get a silver medal. You know.
Yes.
Nobody gets a silver medal.
Yes.
It's not like the Olympics. You get a gold for bronze and a silver second, and a gold for first, and a silver for second, and a bronze for third. There's no second place. So when you make that decision on the election day, you are making a decision. That is one place. So I invite all your listeners and callers to think wisely about that decision and understand that when you pay your property tax, you have a document in your hand to prove that the property belongs to you, and you can pass it on from generation to generation. And it's as good as just buying a bottle of water per day. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you, sir. You know, I think we have another call. Hello, good night. Hello, good night.
Well, what a pleasant surprise tonight.
Yes.
And I would have missed you if my sister didn't call me. And when I saw you, I spread the message like wildfire. You think you're paying me to spread it. Zina here. So here was now so nice seeing your handsome face there tonight.
Thank you.
And and giving us all the information we need. So you go ahead, and as I just heard Mr. Chance, good evening. And, we locked on tight, and I tell you, while I'm listening to you and I'm going for the break, I'm spreading the news and I'm spreading the number too. Well, I put it on the screen anyhow. Yes. So, thank you for the information. We can't hear enough of local government. You give it to us, give us the truth, nothing but the truth. But what I want to ask you before I go, there's an ad on the Express today, and I'm calling it out because I could recall Dr. Rowley saying there will be no inheritance tax.
Correct.
Is that not what we heard?
That is what we heard.
I'm seeing an ad here with a key ring with a tag mark, inheritance tax. And I'm seeing they are bringing a 25% inheritance tax. And on the side says, don't make an insane choice. And it just says, paid advertisement. Now, nobody ain't claiming that, Yes. But we know that is mischief. And I am still calling out the Express. If the Prime Minister said it's not true, the government says so, why are you accepting an ad for an incorrect ad? Because you're fooling the people, and I don't think that is right. And I am calling on the Ethics Committee, who like to jump on Dr. Rowley's back as he says something. I'm calling on them to check it out and to call Express to book. Thank you, Dominic. You have a pleasant night. And when could we look forward to seeing you again?
Tomorrow night.
Every night?
Tomorrow night.
All right, very well. Well, you have one patron here who locked on.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye. Right, good night.
We have another caller on the line. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Dominic. Good evening to your viewers and listeners. Excellent program. Lots of great information.
Thank you.
I'm confused though. Like your previous caller, I saw this ad, inheritance tax, as a paid ad on the Express. Now, I've been hearing the UNC leader and the leader of the opposition talking about inheritance tax, and inheritance tax that they will repeal or ensure doesn't happen once you put them in government. Now, interestingly, earlier, you were able to go back with a little research and look at the land and building taxes, because it's recorded there.
Yes.
I mean, it was a bill, it was Parliament, passed a law or legislation. I would expect to our more discerning people, ask the leader of the opposition, as you speak about inheritance tax, can you show us the legislation that speaks to inheritance tax?
Yes.
Could you show us a document and the details of inheritance tax? I would love to see it. If I am to make a decision as to whether I would want to support it or not support it. But what are we discussing in terms of what is she going to repeal? Where is the document? Where's the legislation? Who drafted it? When? Did it go before any of the joint select committees and so on of Parliament, like every other legislation? When was it debated? Where?
Yes.
I mean, people must ask themselves these questions. And of course, I do share the concern of the previous caller. Now, while it's a paid ad, and I guess the newspaper is in the business of making money.
Yes.
But I think that there must be some responsibility with sharing information that does not exist.
Yes.
So and my example is, I want to sell a train, and I put an ad in the papers to sell a train, and encouraging people in trying to be able to buy this train. But the train does not exist.
Yes.
So I put out an ad and the newspaper take my money, and I put out an ad and it's printed there. It's misleading in my view. So I just wanted to share that. But great program, and thanks again for the information.
Thank you. And I agree wholeheartedly with the caller. It seems there is no integrity in journalism, or at the very least, integrity in journalism seems to be waning. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
First, let me say congratulations.
Thank you.
On your maiden program tonight.
Yes.
And I know the battle have begun.
Yes.
And I will be on the battlefield from Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got in an incident, and I don't know if someone tried to rob me or there's some people to attack me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was under doctor's orders because I get lost in my head. I'm Wendell Eberly talking to you tonight.
Okay.
I want to keep up the good work.
Thank you. Do we have another caller? Hello, good evening.
Hi, Dominic, New York City.
Hey, New York. Good evening.
Two matters. How are you? Fine, good. The question of the property tax and the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel the PR on that from the government side is really poor. I mean, they need to really, double down on the PR about this property tax.
Yes.
Like the Express just deal with some false information about inheritance tax.
Yes.
Why can't the government have a spreadsheet on all the major newspapers and really outline in simple language for the electorate to understand the benefits that the property tax is going to have effect on them?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about the Express and that false information about inheritance tax. Somebody needs to file an injunction against the Express to stop publishing wrong information with no evidence. I think, those drastic steps need to be taken so that these people can learn a lesson with their journalistic profession.
Yes.
Do not publish wrong information if you do not have the evidence.
Yes.
You cannot do that in the United States. It's impossible. You'll be getting a suit a long time. Have a great day, sir, and I'm enjoying your program and listening.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. Okay, so we appear to have lost that one. Yeah, again, these are the things that people need to speak about when you see it. Hello, good evening. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, caller, go ahead.
Good evening. I am just calling to say good evening to you and to tell you thank you so much for all the information that you're sharing.
You're most welcome.
And I just want to say good evening to Mr. Chance, to Zila, to Brian.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Hello, good evening, I think. All right, so yeah, we lost that one. These are the issues that we will be discussing as we go along. The issue of journalistic integrity. If the Express knows that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance have both indicated that the claim that they are bringing a inheritance tax is a falsehood. In fact, when the Prime Minister would have called out the leader of the opposition to tell us what is the source of that claim, and her response was, I'm not sharing my sources, because as you know, journalists say they don't share their, they don't reveal their sources. Well, then how can we trust you? Are we just to go by your word? The same word where just 2 weeks ago the claim was made that the Dr. Rowley increased the price of flour by 33% last week. And then 1 week later, the price of flour fell by between 10 to 13%. So that claim by the opposition leader was exposed as a lie in one of the most spectacular ways, where not one, not two, but 3 flour producers / suppliers would have indicated that they were decreasing the price of flour, contrary to what we were told. If you can't trust what comes out of the mouths of some of our politicians, how can you trust them with office? For if you would lie in small things, what about the big things? Hello, good evening. Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Dominic. I have a question for you with regards to the councillors that you spoke about. So is there any control as to vetting these people for fraud like, normally when you go and you get a job in a bank,
yes,
for instance,
Mhm.
Your counselors or whoever it is,
Yes.
they would go to the EBC, they would apply, and they would bring certain information. And because I cannot understand why we have such an important situation here where somebody is trying to be a counselor, sitting together in a meeting room, trying to decide and discern to spend millions of dollars, and we didn't vet any of them.
Yes.
So what is the situation there?
And that is the challenge. You see, the parties rely on the constituency executives to send up the best nominees. What we saw recently where a person who would have screened for a Tunapuna seat under the UNC was held with an illegal firearm in a bar at 2 a.m. in the morning. And this was supposed to be the front runner for that district to represent that party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's my point. And my point is that just the isn't good enough for me in the sense that one party is doing due diligence where that is concerned. So what about the others? Yeah. And you have situations where, so shouldn't we have something, overall, where in order, just like applying for a job to drive a bus, you have to have a proper license.
Yes.
And you look to see when you go for the interview, if you of good character, if you're a criminal, if you're a fraudulent person. So, but anyway, I guess you can't really answer that. One other question that I have to, not related, but with regards to the situation in Tobago.
Yes.
And we have spoken about this situation with the chief sec and the situation there. What is the situation? Is there? I don't have any confidence with regards to the police bringing charges. Are they going to take 10 years, another 20 years to at least decide if they're going to bring these things to bed, or for instance, like before, with regards to the DPP, drop-in cases. So I have absolutely no confidence. What is the situation now? Are we just to sit down and wait for? I mean, we could look at this over and over. Everybody listened to it every day for the last how much weeks? You hear that the police is investigating, and then others are now saying that they're investigating. How long is it supposed to happen? And what do you have to say about that going forward?
Yes. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get comment from that from one of our future guests who'll be able to shed some light on that matter.
Yes.
Yes.
You have a lot of confidence, do you?
Well, we've been waiting 9 years now for a resolution or an outcome in the Prison Gate matter, where 2 attorneys were accused of cutting and pasting witness statements since 2014. We're in 2023, so I'm not that confident.
But Dominic, at some point in time, somebody has to say something and do something. Is it going to have to reach to a point where people can't go to the government because the government doesn't do police work? Everybody is asking the Minister of National Security or all those, and we can't look at them. Then we get to a situation here where there is a clear and present danger in Tobago.
Yes.
and so we're supposed to just sit and wait. And is there what do we do? Could somebody call the commissioner of police? Is she responsible for that? That investigation, or does it lie with the DPP? And if he's not doing anything, well, anyway.
Yes.
Good program. This is my first time calling anywhere.
Thank you.
Been listening to you.
Yes.
And love your program.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best. And I, for one, would be voting PNM. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for taking my call. Have a pleasant night.
You're most
Rest of the
Well, folks, we are out of time, but not out of things to say. So join me again tomorrow night, where I expect to be joined by a guest, and we will be continuing in the vein of local government reform. We expect to have a chairman of one of the corporations who will be sharing some information with us about demystifying local government, and we'll of course give you an opportunity to call in and pose any questions that you may have. So enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you for joining me on this, the debut of Real Issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain. And God's willing, we will chat again tomorrow evening. I am out. Thank you.